Welcome to the Drive Idaho podcast, episode number 3. Hi, my name is Vincent Trimboli. I am the manager for the Idaho Transportation Department's Office of Communication, and it is my pleasure to host these podcasts. The Drive Idaho podcast is a new communication channel for ITD. We release these podcasts on a monthly basis, and for the first year, we will also use this forum to help better educate the public on the Interstate 84 corridor in Canyon County. Here's what's on tap for this episode. After a blustery February, the snow is beginning to subside. The sun is out, and so begins the annual construction season. We have a saying at ITD, there's just 2 seasons, first winter and then construction. Today, we will turn our attention to the latter and raise awareness about Workzone safety. The week of April 8th is National Workzone Awareness Week. The goal is to make the working conditions safe for your family, friends, and neighbors as they make a living constructing and maintaining our roadways. Today, we will speak with Mike Burke, a longtime construction manager with Concrete Placing Company. He spent most of his lifetime in and around work zones. We'll also hear from a friend and colleague at the Idaho Transportation Department, Steve Porter, the leader of ITD's maintenance operation in Caldwell. Before we get to that, big news on the construction front. Work is underway to expand Interstate 84 from Nampa to Caldwell. The Karcher Overpass was removed a couple weeks ago. Here's what the demolition of the bridge sounded like and some comments from those doing the dangerous yet exciting work.
I'm Virgil Tucker. I'm with Concrete Placing, and I'm a project superintendent. We're going to take down the eastbound lane of the bridge of the old Karcher Road. Well, that is just precast girders with a cast-in-place deck, and we'll put hydraulic breakers up on the deck. They're on one operator sitting inside an enclosed cab. You don't have the silica dust problems. Just safer. Break through the deck first, and then we'll start taking down one span at a time, breaking the girders and putting them on the roadway. We're hoping to get both lanes done in the next 2 nights, all the superstructure down and removed, and then maybe a night or 2 to clean up the piers and the abutments. So about 4 nights. Well, we've had several guys that have taken down quite a few bridges with me, and so we got some good experience help here, and some of the new guys too, so they'll learn, and it varies the size of the crew, but say average probably 20. There shouldn't be no problems.
Construction on the new Karcher Road overpass began immediately after the demolition. We are replacing the overpass to accommodate additional lanes on Interstate 84. Don't confuse this overpass with the Karcher Midland Interchange by the Treasure Valley Marketplace. It is open. We're talking today about the bridge where Karcher Road crosses over the interstate as you drive east toward Boise. That bridge will be closed until the fall of 2019 to traffic. Please follow the detour signs down Nampa Caldwell Boulevard and the Karcher Connector. Now, during construction, all businesses around the overpass will remain open, so please support your local businesses. Our first guest is Mike Burke from Concrete Placing Company, or CPC. CPC is the contractor for the Karcher Road Overpass project in Nampa and the Cloverdale Overpass in Boise. Mike has had a hand in overseeing many construction projects on Interstate 84 over the years, from interchanges to bridges and constructing lane miles. Mike, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
So first, talk about that work that you do, Mike. What's some of the things you have done, some of those notable things that you and your company are proud of?
Well, we've built a handful of projects for the Transportation Department on the interstate, the expansion of the corridor through there. So Gowan Interchange, the Broadway Interchange, Meridian Interchange, Eagle, 10 Mile, and the Garrity are some of the more notable ones. The widening of the interstate from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. We expanded it from 2 lanes to 4 lanes originally in 1994 or so, and then had the opportunity to redo that again here just a few years ago.
What are some of the steps that it takes to set up a work zone? So we're going to talk about work zones today. So what are some of those steps?
Well, to begin with, we've got engineering drawings. So we have engineers who have designed what it takes for the work zone, knowing what work needs to take place within there. They've designed it using federal guidelines on what it would take to make a safe work zone. And then at that point, it's our job to execute. So we're out setting up the warning signs that are warning you of changing speed limits or changing lanes, and then candlesticks, drums, or concrete barrier to protect the work zone.
What's some advice that you would give drivers who are passing through a work zone?
I would suggest they follow the signs. So reading the signs and knowing what's coming is critical to making sure you know what you're doing. We tend to be distracted when we drive with cell phones and navigation systems and the music playing or talking in the vehicle, when we ought to be paying attention for that. There's guys working on the side of the road, and they would like for you to be paying attention as you drive through.
One of the issues we tend to see out on the road when people are coming up to construction zones is a car and, say, a commercial truck, and the cars always want to outrun the commercial trucks. What do you say to that?
Well, don't necessarily take on the truck. That's never a good plan. And the other part of that is, you know, if you get in front of that truck, you might save yourself 6 to 10 seconds getting through the work zone. It's really not worth it. It's going to be important, though, that you give the truck plenty of space, let them get over, and that'll move everybody along better.
Yeah, that tends to slow people down even more through a work zone when people are jockeying for position.
You race out in front of somebody, and then when you get up in front, then you slam your brakes on, and then that just causes everybody to put their brakes on.
You've been out there many years now. Tell us about a story or something you've seen that was really unsafe or scary while you and your crews were in a work zone.
Well, it's amazing that just on a fairly routine basis, people will follow work trucks into a work zone, and next thing you know, they find themselves exiting the interstate and down in a median or into the work zone, at which point, you know, it's really difficult to get back out on the interstate. When we were out in Caldwell on exit 29, we had a semi come through. We had the freeway closed. We were setting girders, and the semi driver was asleep. He did manage to make the detour ramp, but then the last minute crashed into all the barrier, turned the truck over, caught on fire. There were 2 drivers in the truck, both got out safely, but it's a pretty close call.
I have a young son. He's about almost of driving age. He's a few years away from driving. But what advice do you give to new drivers?
New drivers, tell them to pay attention. I mean, driving is something that one should be doing when they're driving, not something that we should be doing when we're doing something else. You know, we tend to get distracted with text messages and phone calls, and we've all experienced that. A couple miles have gone by and you can't even really remember what transpired. So for young drivers, pay attention, read the signs, make sure you're watching what everybody else is doing and pay attention.
I always like to tell people, imagine if you worked at a restaurant. You've got a counter, right? You work behind that counter. That's your space. How would you like it if one of your customers just came walking through that space? So we like to treat work zones the same way. You're asked to slow down because you want to make sure that people in their own space, their work zone, are safe, right?
That's correct. Well, the guys need to be paying attention to the work that they're doing so that the work gets done on a nice, timely manner. Things open for the public again. And so when they've got one eye looking out for traffic, then that's just that much work that they're not getting done.
Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate all the work you do out there on the road, a lot of really important projects. And right now we've got this series of projects starting with the Karcher Overpass that's going to make it so much safer when it's finished for the drivers and the people that use that interstate on a daily basis. So thanks for all you do.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Our next guest is ITD maintenance foreman Steve Porter. Steve has been the maintenance foreman in Caldwell for several years now. Steve, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Vince.
Steve, how long have you been with the Idaho Transportation Department?
I've been with ITD for 15 years, and some of those years as a foreman. 3 years here in Caldwell, spent a little time in Twin Falls area, and then I was the foreman up in Haley and Stanley.
How many ITD employees do you have that you work with that are out in the work zones in the Canyon County area?
In the Caldwell shed, we have a 12-person crew. In addition, we also have access to the IDOC crew, which is a 6-person crew that we can use on special assignments.
Now, your assignments, your work in the work zones is what we call short duration. Explain what that is.
So short duration, it's a short duration closure. We cannot be on the interstate until 9 a.m. because of the morning commute, and then we have to be off by 3 p.m. in the afternoon for the evening commute.
And what's some of that work entail? What is a short duration project or a short duration job?
Well, a lot of that is scheduling. You don't want to start a project that you can't finish within that time frame, so it'd be guardrail, crack ceiling, shoulder washout projects, cutting the shoulders down. Anything that we can do within a 5 to 6 hour time frame is what we shoot for.
Now, your work zones are short duration, so one day the traveling public may be coming through, then there's nothing set up, and then the next day suddenly there's a work zone, which is a little different than kind of what we talked about previously with Mike Burke from Concrete Placing. What are some of the common mistakes you see in and around the short duration work zone?
With the traveling public?
Yeah.
A lot of it is, like the big one, is the cell phone usage, not paying attention to the roadway, and then aggressive driving, and then driving too fast for road conditions. And that doesn't count just for wintertime. It's also summertime for traffic volumes. You have to adjust your speed, and that's where the aggravated individuals start coming in.
I like to think of our maintenance workers, men and women across the state, as kind of unsung heroes. How difficult is that job, especially when you only have 5 to 6 hours to get in and out of an area and get something done?
You know, it's very difficult. A lot of planning goes into it, not just from me, but the crew. The crew helps with all the scheduling of the projects, making sure we have all the right equipment and the material. It's very important for us to get out there, and we all have our head on a swivel when we're out there working, protecting each other's back.
And I know you're going to know the answer to this question, but I want to ask it. What's your number one priority out there?
Safety. Not only for us, but for the traveling public.
You didn't even let me finish that.
No, I'm sorry.
No, that's awesome. I mean, that's how important safety, though, is to ITD, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
The safety of the men and the women out there is first and foremost, right?
And really, I think it goes further than ITD. It's your personal responsibility being out there on the roadway. ITD, yeah, you're wearing the shirt and stuff. Ultimately, it comes down to us as individuals and teams.
Making the right choices and the safe choices, not cutting corners, doing it the right way, the safest
Absolutely.
way possible, right?
Absolutely.
And you guys talk safety before and after, right? I mean, it's not just something that you hope that they think they're going to be safe, but you have plans, right?
Yes, we have plans. We constantly talk about it. It's almost like second nature for us to have a discussion. I mean, it's no different than making sure the tank is full on the equipment. It's just that important to us out there at Caldwell, and really all through ITD.
You talked about all those different types of work. Every one probably has its different safety hazards, right?
Absolutely. You know, you could be working in between two pieces of equipment going down the highway. You can have your back turned to traveling public all day long, fixing guardrail. So yeah, it's just keeping your heads on a swivel and being prepared.
So we take questions from the community for this podcast, Steve. So we got a couple here today. I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you mind helping us with that?
Sure.
Okay. So our first question is, and we hear this one all the time, is why is the speed limit reduced and the barrels up when it looks like nobody is actually working in a work zone?
Okay, Vince, I'll take that first part of the speed limit reduced, or why the speed limit is reduced. It can be reduced for many reasons. Here are just a couple of them. The traffic is being asked to make a transition, merge from one or from 2 lanes to 1 lane, and then the lane may narrow, so they want to make sure everybody's going through there safely, so they lower that down. Also to remain consistent throughout that construction project, so you're not seeing speed limit at 55 and then 65 back and forth. So they stay consistent through that project.
Steve, you've talked about the reduction in speed limit, and now talk about the barrels. Why is it sometimes we see barrels when there may not be work going on at the time?
So the barrels are similar to the speed limit, meaning that there could be a number of reasons why they remain up. And here are just a few. They could be protecting a drop-off on the shoulder, protecting or delineating equipment, and honestly, it might just be the cost of setting up and tearing down each day. The contractors are selected from a submitted bid process, and it all comes down to how ITD wants to spend their money.
Yeah, because you can have a work zone that might last a week or two. It doesn't make a lot of sense to take them down and then put them back up every day, because each time you do that, it does what? It costs money, right?
Absolutely.
Another thing that we do, I know that's a great service to the public, is if you go up and down Interstate 84, you see that incident response truck out there. Well, what is that truck, Steve? What do the gentlemen that work that truck, what do they do?
So the IR operators are a huge asset to ITD, I believe. They help the traveling public through the peak times of traffic with everything from a flat tire to calling a wrecker out for them. They also help ISP on accidents and traffic control.
So if you're a member of the public and you have a flat tire or your car breaks down and you have to pull off to the side of the interstate, what do you do? What do you tell motorists that they should do in that situation?
Well, first and foremost, be safe. Keep yourself safe, and everybody in that vehicle. If it's not safe to get out of your car, try to do everything you can inside the car. If an IR vehicle comes up, they'll help you out with lights and everything else to keep you protected. All else fails, call a tow truck, and they'll come and get you.
Well, Steve, thanks for all that you do for ITD and all that your crews do. It's really a tough job. It's not always the safest job, but it's such an important job that we have good roads to drive on in the winter that are safe. We've seen the number of crashes in the winter drastically reduced over the last several years as we've brought in some new techniques. And then we also, have to maintain those roads and fix the potholes and the guardrail and everything in the summer. And we appreciate all that you guys do.
Thank you, sir.
We conclude every one of our podcasts with a safety message. This episode really has been dedicated to Workzone safety. Now, when I first arrived at ITD, one of the first public service announcements I heard was a Workzone message. It was very impactful. And so for this month's safety message, let's hear directly from ITD's employees and their children.
My dad reads me a bedtime story every night.
My grandpa helps me with my homework.
My mom takes me hiking.
My dad takes me to the movies.
The Idaho Transportation Department is working on the interstate in the Treasure Valley. Please leave early, slow down, and pay attention so our parents come home safely.
A powerful reminder for all of us to have patience and be prepared as we drive across our magical state this summer. That's going to do it for our third edition of the Drive Idaho podcast. To learn more about the Idaho Transportation Department, please visit us anytime from anywhere at itd.idaho.gov. Also join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, and now on Instagram. For the latest road conditions, know before you go by checking 511.idaho.gov. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Vincent Trimboli. Please be safe. Have two hands on the wheel, eyes on the road, and your mind on driving.